Thank you all for being here. Why don't we get started? I know they're still ringing chimes, but let's move on. So this is a breakout session, a call to action, developing the talent pipeline. As we all know, ideas and money and talent, and if you don't have talent, the rest can't come to fruition. So we're delighted to have this panel, and Wendy Penry, Chief Human Resource Officer at Aeras, will be moderating for us.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Jeff, for that introduction. Again, my name is Wendy Penry. I'm with Aeras. It's a small TB tuberculosis vaccine company down the street on Research Boulevard. And it is truly my pleasure to be with you this morning. Happy to see so many people. And come on down to the front. We'd love to have you in the front here to talk about this topic. So far, we've had some really interesting conversations about the clicker. Okay, sure. About the business, how we're interacting around the science, innovation. And so today we're really going to focus on the people, because that's really what brings it all together. So a few opening questions for all of you in the audience. How many of you attended the workforce panel last year? Show of hands. A few, 2, 3 maybe. Okay. Our thought in planning for this session today was to pick up where we left off last year and really focus on probably what's on your minds. What's in it for me? So you may be thinking about yourself. You may be thinking about your organizations and how you can better serve them. So we hope that that's part of what you're taking away from today. All right. Another question. How many of you would consider yourselves early career, just getting started in the industry? Okay. How many of you would say you're mid-career, been around for a while, but not too long in the tooth just yet? Okay. And then how many of you are senior executives, long-term? Okay, so we've got a pretty good balance here, just so our panelists are aware of the demographics in the room. And then the final question is, my thought was you're attending these sessions, there's a lot of energy, there's a lot going through your mind as you're sitting there listening. Would you like more time at the end for Q&A? Just show hands, heads. Okay, I think that's what we're going to try to do, because our hope is an outcome of the discussion today is a continuation of the conversation. So let's see where that goes. We'll build some momentum, and then would like to engage you in some ideas on how do we continue this after today? How do we sustain it? Okay. So again, it's really a pleasure to be here and to be able to host our talented panelists and leaders. These are people who have committed a lot of their career to developing the pipeline, to giving their service back to the community, and I think you're going to be really interested in all the things that they have to say today. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves in a minute, even though you have their bios in your programs, but first let me lay out what we want to accomplish in the next hour or so. So it's taking a broad look first at who's doing what. So our panelists represent government, academia, and industry. So again, what's happening in those different intersections? What are the programs that these folks are working on in their organizations? And then, how can you get involved in them? So the what's in it for you is a question that we'd like to be able to answer. And then finally, where do we go from here? Some of that's going to be part of the Q&A, but our title is a call to action. So we want you to be thinking about what you can do as an individual to carry the message forward. So we may be asking you some questions at the end. Okay, let's start on my immediate left with Sanjay Rai. If you could tell us a little bit about your background and your role.
So I'm Sanjay Rai. I work for Montgomery College. We are a 2-year institution based in Montgomery County. We have 3 campuses, 2 workforce development sites, and about 60,000 students. For today's conversations, this is based on biohealth and life sciences. I will talk a little bit later about all the workforce development programs that are geared towards life sciences industry.
Great, thank you. Kelly?
My name is Kelly Schulz. I am the Secretary of Maryland's Department of Labor, Licensing, and Regulation. And one of the divisions within our department is the Division of Workforce Development and Adult Learning. And through that organization, we work on everything from academia to workforce training. It's a very active group. We do work with all of the local organizations like Montgomery College in order to be able to help fund some of their programs and work with specific industry groups as well to be able to develop those skills and techniques and training environments that are appropriate for students going into many different industries. But at this point in time, it's the governor's direction to focus specifically on areas within the technology industries like BioHealth.
Thank you, Kelly. Chris?
My name is Chris Frew. I'm with Breezio. I'm vice president there. We're a startup company really innovating around online community space, online environments for learning and collaboration. I'm also the executive director for BioBuzz, which is a very small volunteer, mostly run nonprofit, about 6 years old. And we started really with kind of one philosophy that relationships matter. And we had a cheesy tagline, we wanted to get scientists out of the labs to culture relationships, not just cells. So 6 years later, we're continuing to do that and hold events all across the state. And state of Maryland would love to come in Virginia. We're a little resource constraint, so we can talk about that. And ultimately, we want to take the things that are happening here today, the collision points, and really help them happen more often all throughout the year.
That's great. Thank you. And I just want to comment that there was one panelist who's not able to join us today. So we thank Scott for volunteering, but unfortunately he's not able to join. So let's start with a fairly broad question. And Sanjay, I'll ask you to answer first, and we'll just go down the line. What do you see as the main problems to be solved in building a talent pipeline? And what is your organization and your contributions doing to address those?
I think that, the issue of talent development for a knowledge company, the challenge is that things move very fast. You are in a very dynamic field. I think the CEO of Micro Sun Systems a few years ago said that the products that they shipped in the December of a certain year, in January of the same year, they didn't know that those products existed. Typically, if you look at higher education, and I belong to higher education, we take some time in making changes. A curriculum process, by the time you put a proposal through and by the time your program and courses are approved, industry has changed. So we have to look at new way of looking at this. From my institution's point of view, from Montgomery College, we work very closely with the industry. We bring changes very, very fast. In terms of our biotechnology program that is offered at Germantown campus, just a few miles away from these facilities, we work with 300 life sciences companies in this region. We created a program that serves the industry very, very well. We have placed hundreds of students in these industries. Just in the last four months or so, we have placed 16 students on full-time jobs at MedImmune, Lonza, and also at BioReliance. So the new way of looking at working with industries and filling the skill gaps. And we have lots of other workforce development programs that I will talk a little bit later in the program.
So you would say that one of the challenges is the pace, and how do we develop programs to be able to keep up with the pace of change?
So I think, yes, certainly the pace, industry changes very fast, and the rigidity in higher education of coping up with the change. Those are the two issues.
Yep, friction points. Okay, great. Kelly?
I think that one of our, and I certainly agree with Sanjay, we work in the same workforce development environment. I think one of the difficulties that we see is attracting those to different types of occupations and what they may think is involved in biohealth and technical fields overall. So being able to recruit students at an early age so that they understand what those industries are and what some of the expectations. You all know in this room, the biohealth industry is about more than putting on a lab coat and being in a lab. And there's many, many different occupations that are associated with this field. And what we're finding from the industries is not only the fast pace and having to be flexible, but being able to focus some of the other jobs that are out there that they need to fill, whether it be in manufacturing or the bio, not the labs, but in administrative functions, and understanding what the industry actually means. So we're looking at everything from the beginning student, and obviously many of you know they're starting STEM classes and curriculum in the public schools starting in middle school and before that. We're specifically targeting those high school students to be able to provide them with apprenticeship opportunities. And it might sound odd to you to talk about apprenticeship opportunities when we are in STEM industry and occupations, but it's a very natural way to be able to move students into a career pathway without them having to believe that you have to go and you have to get your PhD. Of course, they may end up in that career path and in that academic path, but being able to start them in a way where they completely understand what the industry does from the very beginning stages is really very important to us. And we have pilot programs across the state right now that we're working with high schools in specific counties to encourage those students not only to look at STEM occupations, but also have on-the-job training. Because I will say that that's the other biggest challenge for those that are working to fill their positions is that you have people with the academic credentials, but you don't have people with the skilled credentials. And that training, whether it be on the job or in various classroom type settings, is extremely important to be able to have somebody that can fill that need for the industry on day one and then work their way up to higher skills and where we're going with that.
That's great. So it sounds like, Kelly, part of what you're saying is the awareness at an earlier stage of the many kinds of positions that are needed to support the industry. We think along the scientific track, but there's much more that's needed to support that.
Absolutely. And when you look at the jobs that are posted across the state in BioHealth specifically, there are many, many, many job categories that we see in our labor and statistics that show a very wide range. And we see with the increase in advanced manufacturing in this field particularly that you need people that are going to be understanding those processes, not as much of the lab processes, but a different type of process. So we have to look at the whole industry. We have to look at the different academic needs and challenges for businesses across the state that are similar but very different.
That's great. So it sounds like in your role, you're taking a much longer-term view of the entire pipeline, and I think we'll come back in a little bit and talk more about the apprenticeship programs. So
perfect. Thank you.
And Chris, what are your thoughts about what the problems are that we're trying to solve in developing a talent pipeline?
Yeah, I mean, you put me last here, so I first have to start with ditto. I think both were extremely important points. Access to talent and access to what is happening and what fields are available and what careers are available is critical. I mean, there's a lot of students who have their head in a book for many years and pick their head up and they don't know what is available. They've been going along this path. If you look at some of I did a kind of a poll. There was a Leaders of Tomorrow cohort that this forum started, of really exceptional students, and I polled some of them recently, and asked them, where they are now. Good thing is that 70% of them are still in the BioHealth Capital Region, so that's awesome. But what they attributed was, the most important thing to their career, getting their careers, was work experience, and whether it's internships or on the job, and their professional networks. So it wasn't their degree or their school, it was their professional networks and their work experience that combined with that. That's the catalyst that put them over the edge above other students of other opportunities. So I think as a region, this has been said time and time again, we're not Boston, we're not this nucleus. So how can we facilitate those access to develop those professional networks local? So that's something that we're looking at and we're looking at addressing. I spent 10 years recruiting. My company put over 5,000 people to work in Maryland over those 10 years. And so I see the potential that's out there of making the right connections and what's available. And I saw the pain that companies have when they can't find the right person. So I mean, something that we've been working on, an initiative out of the Maryland Department of Commerce, is an In Maryland program, the Internship Network of Maryland. And it seeks to do just that. It seeks to help students create a better professional network within Maryland companies. We're excited that the Maryland Tech Council is going to be running that program. So it's going to be industry driven, and that's the other point I want to make is that, and Sanjay, you brought this up, is that the curriculum often lags behind. So not only will this platform centralize workforce pipeline, create a marketplace for jobs, but it starts with industry, and we're working with our business partners in industry to understand their needs, put them out there first and foremost, so that students can explore and start to learn and start to understand what's available in Maryland or the region. I know we're talking about region. I don't want to be, this program was built around that. But helping them build those people networks, and then using credentials and other things to help de-risk the internship for the employers.
So this reminds me of even this event today. You're all coming together, and maybe some of you haven't seen each other since last year. Hopefully you're making new connections with each other, people you're just meeting. And I was thinking about this discussion that we're having today and how all of us in some way go into our offices, go into our buildings, and focus on what's happening in those four walls. And so I hope that this two-day conference has been a way for you to open your minds a little bit more to all of the different things that are going on. And already we're hearing that there is tremendous effort being put forward and recognition of what we need to do to build the talent pipeline. But I think it can be difficult to think about the whole and all of the different parts and understand where do I begin. And so, Sanjay, I'm going to come back to you. As I was thinking about your profile, here's a guy who's uber networked in his roles on the Life Science Advisory Board, the Tech Council of Maryland, the Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation, and he's chair of the Maryland Council of Community College Chief Academic Officers. I mean, he seems to be doing all of it. So can you help us understand a little bit about how these different entities interact and how their maybe different perspectives still come together to focus on this topic?
Yeah, so in my case, I think there's a little bit of arithmetic problem. I don't know how many hours are there in a day. So I kind of join a lot of these things.
You maximize yours, I think. Yeah.
So, if you look at all these organizations, what is wonderful and outstanding about these organizations, what I see is a lot of collaboration between industries, government, and higher education. And I see a lot of great results. In all these organizations, whether it is Maryland Tech Council or our Economic Development Corporation or the other venues, all these people come together, and their only one objective is to make sure that our region is more economically competitive, and we are bringing better opportunities for people who live in this region. The gap that we see is that we have a lot of isolated efforts. We do not have a better coordination among all these other groups. A Governor's Life Sciences Advisory Board, that came up about a year ago, and that's again a cooperation of government, business, and higher education. And Governor, through Secretary Gill and Secretary Ben Wu, they all attended the meetings and are very active participants. They said, we don't want a plan that stays on the shelf. We want actionable items. And the report was just released. These are actionable items that make Maryland very competitive nationally in the area of life sciences technology. What we found is we have great assets, whether it's NIH or Johns Hopkins, University System of Maryland, and all our community colleges in the state of Maryland. We have a lot of great assets. What we need to do is, from research to commercialization, from NIH, FDA, a few things we need to address. That happens, commercialization comes. In terms of talent development, talent pipeline, between our universities and community colleges, there are great programs, great ability to look at the needs of industry and address them. So, we often hear about competition from Boston or San Francisco and other things. The programs in terms of talent development, The ones we see here, we don't see them replicated.
Could you give some examples?
Okay, so example, just yesterday, Maryland Higher Education Commission approved an undergraduate degree in translational life sciences technology. This degree is designed between Montgomery College, UMBC, and universities at Shady Grove. Think about the cooperation of three very different institutions of higher education, and it builds upon the 2-year biotechnology degree that has been very successful from the Montgomery College. Often, 2-year colleges try to align their programs with 4-year colleges. In this case, UMBC looked at a 2-year program and created 3rd and 4th year to address the needs of the regional life sciences industry. First program of its type in the country. I'll tell you another one that we were very fortunate to receive very good funding from Department of Labor and Licensing, DLLR. And this created a BioTrain program. And this gives laboratory experience in equipment, methods, and supplies. And looking at the job seekers and what industries want, and measuring the skill gap, and then trying to offer the programs that address those gaps. The companies that participate in this program are MedImmune, GSK, BioReliance, United Therapeutics, Kaizen, a number of other companies. They offer courses like protein purification, work-related skills. I can't say enough about working in teams, business communication. Those types of things are very, very important. We offer those programs at our own campus in a state-of-the-art bioscience education center. We have gone to NIH, Bethesda, and Baltimore, and we have offered courses there in collaboration with the industry. And we have also delivered those courses at the GSK site and United Therapeutics sites and the sites of all other companies. More than 300 professionals have been trained through the BioTrain program. Quickly, I'll say another program, BioTrack, that comes out, that it was at NIH for many, many years. Now that's also located at one of our campuses, at Germantown campus, a 30-year-old program. They have trained about 16,000 scientists coming from 50 states and 30 countries worldwide. 61% of those scientists had PhDs. From all 50 states, they came to state of Maryland for this types of training. And people from other parts of the world came for this kind of training from BioTrack. So again, this conversation that our competition with Boston or San Francisco, we don't have, I was hearing yesterday that we don't have MIT or UCSF, things like that. I think that similarity and equity, we have to be careful. We should never try to be San Francisco. We should never try to be Cambridge, Massachusetts. We are Maryland, Virginia, DC region, and we have very unique assets. We have to find our way of using our assets and not trying to beat somebody, but try to become the best we can be. And if, from my perspective, from what I look at, what's available in Maryland, again from NIH, FDA, Hopkins, USM, Montgomery College, MedImmune, GSK, and all that, I think we have achieved maybe 10 to 15% of our potential. How do we get to 50% of our potential? Then, the rest of the competition will be over.
Right. Great. Excellent. Very
Wendy,
optimistic for the future. And I know, Chris, this is near and dear to your heart. Go for it.
Yeah, one point, just to what Sanjay's talking about. So this is a great example about taking action, a call to action for everyone here. So it was a dollar-funded program run at Montgomery College. BioTrain is actually one of the early supporters of the In Maryland program.
Yes.
So this communication and this collaboration is really part of what it takes to be successful. And the call to action, the BioTrain program isn't this static program. everyone here in the audience has an opportunity to contribute to, if you want to do like adjunct, come in and teach a course, business communication. It doesn't have to be technical. Everybody that, how many people run companies or manage companies in this room? So if you need continuing education for your workforce, BioTrain's available for that. The point is we want to hear from you on what your workforce needs are, and we will develop coursework around that, and then even come on site to deliver it from you. I mean, Quality Biological is one that has used the program multiple times with multiple different coursework. So there's a clear call to action on a program like this that everyone in this room can take advantage of. And I think it is a good example of really true collaboration, public-private partnership.
So here's the question: what does it cost?
It's free.
Right.
It's free.
Exactly.
It's free for companies. It's free. So it doesn't cost anything. This is you can probably talk for thanks to Kelly.
Right,
It's
right.
free.
So a lot of these programs are grant funded. And when the department and the state looks at the types of programs that we need to be able to push forward for the purpose of industry being able to create their own workforce, because that's what's happening. We need for the businesses to work to create their own workforce. Yeah. So we need for them to come to us and say, this is what we need. And let's be honest, the reason why we have so many vacancies across the state in jobs in this particular industry is because I don't think people had been listening so much before. We had been looking at it as a government opportunity and individualized opportunities, and we now know that doesn't work. So thanks to organizations like LSAB and the different types of communication stakeholder groups that the governor has put together, we're now realizing that if we don't work together for our ultimate goal, we're going to get what we've always got, which is a lot of vacancies within all of your specific organizations, and that's not working for you, right? So we took the alternate path, and we decided to create new innovative programs doing things a different way, which I know we'll talk about in a little bit. But the funding of them, part of it comes from our federal grants that specifically go from the U.S. Department of Labor to us for us to be able to initiate, but also with brand new grant funding that has come from the governor, and especially in this new budget that was passed, to be able to create more economic growth in the state, specifically around these types of technical fields.
Great.
And Northern Virginia Community College has one, and Scott couldn't make it today, so I do want to take a moment to reflect on one of his. So there's a program launching this fall at the high school level, creating an immediate pathway for jobs in Fairfax County to the new Inova Personalized Health Center for health informatics. So, a new trade program put in Fairfax high school where students will be able to graduate into a job in health informatics. Excellent. So again, another good example of how industry is taking a leading role in developing their pipeline.
Yeah, great. So thinking about the demographics of the room, if I could ask the panelists to shift a little bit, and it sounds like we're making some connections on those early career, the entry into the industry, but I bet some of you are thinking, again, what about me? So can you speak to, and I'll just let whoever's ready go first, to the mid-career or the executive programs that are in existence or are being planned for?
Well, I think specifically, I'm not in your profession, but we deal directly with industries that are looking for those upskills of their employees. Because one of the important parts of a business is to be able to create a longevity, a career pathway for those individuals that you already have that relationship with. And how can you continue their education and their skills training within your organization? And if you're an employee, how do you create a career pathway so that you don't have to go? I mean, the trend is, to spend a couple of years at each business and move on into the next organization. Well, you don't have to do that based solely on what your academic or your training is within that specific group. So we allow the companies to come to us to be able to get training funding for those incumbent workers that want to be able to be skilled into higher levels. And obviously there's always the pathway to go the academic route to be able to continue your academic career. However, when you are in a position and you have new technology, and let's face it, you guys have new technology by the hour, and you need to be able to specifically train those individuals that are there with you, the department will match your training for those individuals dollar for dollar. And that has become such an important part for industries overall across the state, particularly in those industries that need to be able to remain flexible, that are having a difficult time recruiting those people. So if you are in a specific business, you're bringing in new technology, or you've had attrition in some of your areas and you need to backfill in those positions and create different training environment, we will, through the Maryland Business Works program, provide the business with a grant in order to be able to upskill those individuals for longevity, because that turnover is very costly. We look at those numbers every day. We understand how important it is for the businesses to hold on to the talent that they have created and they have built, and the trust and the camaraderie that's within the businesses, because as you can see here at this beautiful campus, that is one of the main reasons for advancement. To be able to have that internal networking within your own business. So to retain the qualified and the quality of the staff that you do have is very important to us to be able to assist with that. We started this program at the department when several years ago, a similar program at the Maryland Department of Commerce was no longer funded. Many of you may know that, the PWQ program. We had additional federal funding that we had some flexibility with. We put it in, and now we have grant opportunities available. There's money available right now if anybody wants to stop and talk to me about it afterwards.
I hope you brought a lot of business cards.
I've got them in my
good,
bag.
Good. Sanjay,
There's a, oh, sorry.
So, for mid-career professionals, we are looking at two different kind of tracks. One, within life sciences industries, what are the new things that continuous learning point of view? What we see is that the emergence is at the intersection of life sciences, data science, and IT. A lot of new things are coming up. So from Montgomery College's point of view, we are looking at those things. We are going to very soon offer bioinformatics, cloud computing, data science, Pythons, those kind of things, so that genomic data, large data, how do you deal with it? So if you are working in typical life sciences area for the last 15 years or so, and if you want to learn a little bit more on the statistical genomics side or bioinformatics side, cloud computing side, we have all kinds of opportunities in that area. The other track that we are looking at is leadership development. What does it take to lead a life sciences company from leadership point of view, or a knowledge company from a leadership point of view? So look at somebody who has a PhD in life sciences and who has worked for 15, 20 years in life sciences industry. You want to move up to the management side. So coming up with a program that is affordable, that can be done during weekend hours or evening hours, and something that's affordable too. All our programs, our credit programs, 1/3 of the cost of a typical state institution. And a lot of the other programs are fortunately funded by the grants, so are completely free. We offer a program, a clinical trial technician program. There is no one who creates clinical trial technicians. A lot of clinical trials are going on. Those kind of programs cost $500-600 for the entire program. So.
Fantastic.
I think when I think of mid-career talent or executive talent, a couple things. One, when you were commercializing when you were at HGS, trying to bring in that commercial talent, and there just wasn't enough of it in the region. So there's different categories of talent that need to be developed. And then I think of the panel that was just here, who often say I invest also in mostly in just the management team, and do I have successful entrepreneurs who've gone through exits, who have commercialized products, and so those are some categories of of talent that we also have to think about how we develop. And nothing beats the failure quotient, right? So nothing beats people who've gone through it and done it, and that's why there's an important investment in that. And I know that's important areas of investment for a lot of organizations. I know MedImmune runs a CEO mentoring dinner, mentoring program, and the Tech Council has a venture mentoring program, which we're going through, and it's fabulous. And what's great about some of those programs is it's also culture building, because this region is never going to be a top 3 if the culture, if people don't reinvest and re-mentor and give back. So those programs really facilitate that culture of giving back and building that real true sense of community and helping helping that other person along and go through that valley of death and go through the challenge of those mid-career challenges that we've all gone through, where how do I deal with the boss who's competing for my job and that sort of thing. So that type of development that I know the Tech Council is doing. VA Bio has a women maybe you can, I can't remember what it's called, but.
The Million Women Mentors.
Yeah, William. That's a perfect example. That is so powerful, and it works.
Yeah, and Chris, you are so right. And when you talk about whatever point in time you are in your career, whether you are mid-level, entry-level, or advanced, being a part of a mentorship program has statistically shown the best results above and beyond training and academia. Because you had mentioned it a little earlier, it's about who you know, and it's about your circle of people that are surrounding you and helping to guide you through your career pathway. And the Lieutenant Governor has spearheaded in Maryland the Million Women Mentoring through our office. So we're helping to bring all of those different mentoring groups together that are already in existence, but being able to create that larger network, very similar to the internship program. And I know that the Maryland Tech Council is working with us to help to collaborate that as well, along with the Chamber of Commerce. But it is so important that those connections not only are made at the networking events like you guys have here for 2 days to be able to work with that, but for an entire career. To be able not only to find a mentor for you, but also for those that are in the advanced parts of your career, to be a mentee to others. Because it's your institutional knowledge that is going to be able to help to continue to make that workforce of the future fluid, without those big gaps where you have that high level of turnover, and to be able to bring folks into the fold.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to be mindful of time and the promise that we made up front to give you more time to ask questions. So I just have one more from my end here, and Chris, it's to you. So a lot of great information is being shared today about what's happening in the region. You're going to walk away and remember a few things, but where do I go to get all that? Is there a plan for how do we bring all this together? You were talking earlier about online communities. So how do we go to a one-stop shop and find all this information later on?
Well, there isn't a one-stop shop completely yet, but I know that's been a conversation that was been had on multiple sectors, and it's and it's a tough thing to lift. I mean, you have one-stop shop for what, jobs, and then there's a lot of different components, so it's a heavy lift. We've always focused on the people component to it. So the BioHive is something that we've invested in as a really kind of proof of concept, taking BioBuzz beyond just the in-person relationships and creating that kind of a place where you can have multiple connections, and it's crowd powered, so everyone can add their own information on it and share. I posted an article today that lists some of Kelly's programs, Sanjay's programs, multiple programs from Commerce and the Tech Council. So we shared that today, and I think Laura's probably tweeting that out. And we'd love to host the panel here for continued conversation. And it's an active program, so we welcome everybody to join that, biohive.net. And you can join, biobuzz.net, you can join the BioHive. And you can continue the conversation there as a starting point. But I promise, I know BHI is working on it, MedImmune, VA Bio, everyone's working on trying to centralize it. And I think probably, we'll be making strides over the next year. We just launched a website right before the conference. So those are all moving forward, and Right now there are still multiple pockets for different things, but I think they are moving forward. I know we're excited because the Internship Network of Maryland will be a central place for workforce, and Brett Schreiber, who's been spearheading this effort, always talks about it like the iPad. It's a marketplace. We're not trying to, we want it to be a place everyone can plug into, and I think that's a good model.
Okay, great. Thank you. So now I welcome you. We've got 2 microphones here in the aisles to come up and ask our panel questions.
Hello, I'm Randy Roboto. I'm the CEO of SciPhD. We provide training programs to make academic scientists business ready so that they're more plugged into these kinds of positions. I just want to make a couple of observations relevant to what you all 3 were talking about. One is from our experience in doing these programs in New York and California, all over the country. One of the things, Kelly, that you said that's really true is that a lot of the scientists, and these are mostly postdoc and graduate PhD candidates, they're not aware of many of the career opportunities that are available to them. There's this notion that because I'm doing bench science, that's what I have to do. And a lot of them don't want to. A lot of them want to be in operations, want to be in communications, science liaisons, those sorts of things. So one of the things that we see is they get very excited when they find out that there are a lot more career opportunities available to them than just the traditional bench science path. The other thing, though, that we see is that the real piece that's missing, I think that the things that Sanjay's talking about with regard to keeping up with the constantly changing and evolving technologies, really important. But what's really missing in most of the programs are the business-ready skills. Academic scientists learning that it's not okay to always be the expert, to be able to be a learner, to be able to be part of a team functioning, communications, leadership, all these kinds of skills. And so we spend a lot of time doing that. And that has been probably the biggest contribution to our students getting good jobs in real companies. And then the final comment, again, relates to something else that Kelly, we must be drinking the same Kool-Aid or something, I don't know. What works the best is adapting your programs to the lifestyles of academic scientists who cannot fit into the traditional semester kind of programming. They have full-time jobs essentially in the lab. You have to figure out ways that you can provide programs that do 2 things. One, can give them the content that they need. Our experience is that learning by doing, experiential learning, is far more effective. But the other thing that you have to learn that we have found is very helpful is getting them to become a peer coaching group themselves. Because scientists really are leaders. They just don't know it a lot of times, and it takes them realizing that. And we establish them developing their own peer coaching groups, and they teach themselves way more than they ever thought that they could. So just food for thought.
Thank you for your insights. Yep.
And interestingly, through the BioTrain program, the most popular courses are business communication, and that's one of the most highly requested. And it's also interesting to point out that the University System of Maryland is launching a new skills badging, workforce readiness skills, both based off the 21st century workforce readiness guidelines. And so again, and those are all, they're not technical, it's all leadership skills, communication skills, project management skills. So those continue to rise to the surface as we're as part of the gap we need to fill.
That's right, and this is not a knock on the academia part of the career path, but there is nothing that replaces that on the job, that being able to be integrated into what the industry and what the business actually looks like, which is why when we do our apprenticeship programs, we tell the students and we tell the businesses when we help them to create their apprenticeship program for those specific fields in STEM, that we are going to work with you to find out exactly what you need to have over the course of 3 years to get to that point in your career that you can understand all facets of that business, because then you're going to understand what the CEO is looking for because you've been at meetings with them. You're going to understand what the maintenance crew might look like. What does it look like to have a clean industrial setting, so that you have a broader vision of the entire industry with which you have chosen to work.
Good. Thank you. I think you arrived at the microphone next.
Okay, thanks. So I made the right choice because I started off in that other session and I came into this one.
All right.
This one was just fantastic.
You're
so
a smart man.
congratulations. Also meant to miss the start of it. So anyway, I've got an admission for you. So my admission is that I'm not a millennial, right?
Can you tell us who you are and what organization you represent
So
as well?
I'm Steve Streeton from Covance, a contract research organisation. My closest connection to millennials is I'm a father of 2 millennials.
Yeah.
And what I've worked out from being a father is they're interested in totally different things than I was at their age. They're not particularly interested in a career. They're interested in experiences. They'd no more want to work for a company for 20 years than they want to go to the moon. I don't know. Anyway, my question then really is about this region we're in here. I mean, what options do you think there are for more regional activities to appeal to those millennials? So, rather than an apprenticeship in one company, an apprenticeship which might span through 3 or 4 different companies, rather than mentorship within one company, a mentorship across companies, to actually make it a really attractive place for millennials to start their careers, taking advantage of the sort of proximity of different sorts of companies, academia, etc. So I just wonder what the panel thought about a more targeted approach to the millennials, who are the future of the industry.
So I mentioned Governor's Life Sciences Advisory Board's recommendations. One of the top 2 recommendations is once creating a platform where industries and job seekers all come together and one place to go and have all the information. The other is about attracting our young people. I try not to talk about millennials as much because there is strong diversity among millennials also. Often, we take stereotypical assumptions that they are not interested in this or they are interested in that. So I'll come to that in a second. But again, creating a platform where industries and students and others who are interested in learning more about the industry, getting internships and other kind of opportunities, creating a similar platform, and also creating a fund, not a very large fund, but a small fund, given to smaller life sciences companies that are going to hire interns, and giving some kind of pre-training before these kids go and start internships. So, what does it take to go on the first day in a life sciences companies to become an intern and what to do? Our challenge in terms of young generation is that typically there's not as much interest in the STEM areas. Life sciences is certainly one of them. And the kids who are interested in the STEM area, their understanding of STEM is often very stereotypical. I want to be a doctor or an engineer. Often that's, earlier generations have feed into that kind of thinking. They're not aware of emerging opportunities within the STEM area like biotechnology or cybersecurity and other things. So we have to find a way to work with them. Some of the millennials, they're not interested in becoming a doctor or something. They're more interested in solving a problem. So, I want to solve this problem in the world. I want to talk about water. I want to talk about environment. I want to talk about cancer. I want to treat this disease or that disease. So approaching it from problem point of view, I think, is one way to attract millennials. The other thing is that, I'm very optimistic that our life sciences industries are going to do very well. And they will create lots of great opportunities for people in this region. Where we have to work harder, that we live in a very diverse community. We have to make sure that every segment of our community has access to those opportunities that are here, especially mid to high paying jobs. So that's where I think we have a lot of work to do.
I'd like to put it back on you, though, Steve. I mean, I never like to do the work. I always like to delegate it, I guess. It sounds like there's a good opportunity for some sort of program where someone can come in and have an internship with a manufacturing company, and then an R&D company, then a Covance for some clinical experience, and then a manufacturing company or a marketing company agency. So maybe a 3-year type program that gives somebody, those experiences. So this is a great place to find people to work on that with you.
That's the sort of thing. I mean, what I've realized we try and do is we try and retain people. It's a big thing in an organization to retain people once you've recruited them. But just my experience of that particular generation is that they're not really interested in being retained. They would almost be embarrassed to stay at a company too long, so they're going to leave anyway. So we just want to try and make sure they stay in the industry as a whole or in the region as a whole, and actually try and make it an attractive thing to appeal to them when they're coming out of schools and colleges and stuff. So, that's fair to turn it back.
Great idea.
And I agree. And full disclosure, I'm not a millennial either. But I also do have 2 millennials that are in my midst. But I think that it's important to remember that when we're talking about retention and we're talking about that segment of our population, Sanjay was on that track of saying they are going from business to business to business because they're not finding different experiences within that business entity, right? They don't want to be hired to do a job for the next 20 years of their lives. They want to be hired in order to be able to do many different jobs. And if you find a place and if you find a valued employee that has a skill, you can train them in another skill that they don't have to just do that jobs, because millennials don't like a job. They want to be able to expand on a career in different ways. And it's not always about the money for them either, from what I have seen, unfortunately, with my kids. But it's always about, what can they do differently in their world. And I think businesses have to be able to look at that, where you're hiring an employee to be able to satisfy a specific need right now, with the understanding that over the course of a period of time, they are going to be trained and skilled in doing different types of occupational instances within that organization. And then I think once we start to retrain ourselves as employers, we are going to see that retention naturally. But I do think that one thing about this region is that millennials like this region because there is a lot for them to do. So they are a natural demographic for us to tap into regionally, because you've got the mountains, you've got the oceans, you've got the trails, and they all like to have that. That's their first part of their world, is that. Right. So the more we locate and we look at the opportunities to keep them attracted to where we are, we're not going to lose them to other regions in the country, I don't think.
I think this is a great conversation. I'm looking around the room, seeing lots of heads nodding, seeing people smiling, and I would posit that that's this idea of the millennials. That's something we all want, isn't it? We want a purpose to our work. We want meaningful things to do to make a contribution, and autonomy and mastery and getting there. So I think we have time for probably one more question, but don't go away. So yes, sir, you're up.
I'll also try to make it quick, to be fair. So my name is Deji. I am a postdoc here at MedImmune in clinical development. My background is in pharmacy. I obtained my pharmacy degree last year. And the one thing that I found lacking, as one of the previous, you asked a question about it, is the curriculum in terms of preparing students for the life sciences. If you think the PhD kind of curriculum is sort of lacking in that, the clinical curriculum is actually even more lacking in that. And for life sciences, in which the overall goal is usually bringing some sort of technology or drug into clinic, having that clinical perspective early on is very vital. So I do believe clinicians can play a role, either it be pharmacists, physician, dentists, in that development of those ideas. But again, our curriculum is really lacking in those exposure and experiences. So my question to you is, are there any efforts in place to provide, mainly, sorry to be biased here, clinical students with that exposure to the life sciences and industry in general? Thank you.
So our BioTrain program has flexibility to do anything that industry needs. The way it works is that we sit down with the industry, and if industry says that we need clinical people to get these 5 skills, whether these are skills related to the labs or research or business communication or IT, those kind of things. We can sit down together, create a curriculum, and deliver it in a way that people who are working Monday to Friday, 8 to 5, they can still go through the curriculum.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And thank you very much for the talk, too. It's been very engaging.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you so much, Wendy, for allowing me to ask this question before the lunch. And
Yes, your question is the only thing between us and lunch.
I'm so
The
sorry.
keynote
but
is
I
next.
really
Okay.
have 2
In 8
questions.
minutes,
I
okay.
think I will try to keep my questions short. I have 2 questions. The first question is for Kelly. I would like you maybe can tell us a little bit more about the initiative about the women and mentorship. So that is very important for bioscience, the field women. And also, second question, I'm going to direct it to Sanjay. And I totally agree with you that this is a wonderful location, wonderful area for, all kinds of things happen in the world, let's say. And we have really utilized, no matter your company or schools or government have utilized very 5 to 10%, as you have referred, the resources that we have. So you also mentioned about you have a program about for clinical trial technician training program. But actually, I work for the National Institute of Health. I oversee international clinical trial project. We have so many clinical trial the experts, specialists that are engaged in international the activities. So this kind of
I apologize.
so much resources. Sorry, I'm ending. Sorry. So what are you planning to do to utilize all these wonderful resources in this area?
So
Thank you.
our clinical trial technician program closely work with a company called Aeras, and we bring experts from FDA and NIH. They teach in our classes. And I also know that some of our graduates are working at NIH and FDA. And I see one of the graduates sitting in the audience. She's CEO of a local biotechnology company. She went through our clinical trial technician program. And in her program, she worked in a group with 2 or 3 other students during the program. And once the group project was over, she hired them. So, they can. Thank you.
That is success.
Yes. Great.
And I will just very briefly say that I'm happy to have a longer conversation about the Million Women Mentors organization. It's a nationwide organization that Maryland was not participating in up until last year. The lieutenant governor quickly grasped onto it, and he gave it to me, and he said, make it work. So we are. But I'm happy to expand on that, but it's something that we are working with all of the mentoring organizations across the state to try to create that clearinghouse of the mentoring opportunities in industries. This is specifically focused on women in STEM, but happy to work with you on that.
So in closing, I'd really like to thank everyone for your attention today. Glad you found this a useful conversation. I think one next step is to go to biobuzz.net and look at the post that Chris has put out for us last evening, I think, maybe around midnight, that includes a lot of the resources that we've talked about here today. And then we will find a way to get the attendee list and invite you to continue this discussion with our distinguished panel here online. So thanks for your time and attention today.